Good evening. I'd like to convene the Leon County School Board meeting here this Tuesday, September 10th, 2019 at the Aquilina Howell Building. And as always, we start with our students for the pledge and the thought for the day. So AP, if you could introduce them, that would be lovely.
So we have two gentlemen here today who I've already had the pleasure of meeting, and I can tell you that they're great. First up, we have Jalen Williams, who is a kindergartner at Chairs Elementary School. He is accompanied by his mom, Pamela Williams, and his interests include reading, riding the ATV, playing with his babysitter, cooking, and cars. He will be leading the Pledge of Allegiance for us today. Come on up, Jalen.
Please stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, a nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And next up, we have Braden Brazel from Chairs Elementary School. He is a third grader. He's accompanied by his mom, Dana Brazel, and his school activities include being a leader in his SGA program and the news crew, and his interests include reading, building Legos, chemistry, and just science overall. He'll be doing our thought of the day. Go ahead.
All I Really Need to Know I Learned in Kindergarten by Robert Fulghum. All I really need to know I learned in kindergarten. All I really need to know about how to live and what to do and how to be I learned in kindergarten. Wisdom was not at the top of graduate school mountain, but there in the sandpile at Sunday school. These are the things I learned. Share everything, play fair, don't hit people, put things back where you found them, clean up your own mess, don't take things that aren't yours, say you're sorry when you hurt somebody, wash your hands before you eat, flush, warm cookies and cold milk are good for you. Live a balanced life, learn some and think some, and draw and paint and sing and dance and play, and work every day some. Take a nap every afternoon. When you go out into the world, watch out for traffic. Hold hands and stick together. Be aware of wonder. Remember the little seed in the styrofoam cup. The roots go down and the plant goes up, and nobody really knows how or why. But we are all like that. Goldfish and hamsters and white mice and even the little seed in the styrofoam cup. They all die. So do we. And then remember the Dick and Jane books and the first word you learned, the biggest word of all, look.
Good job.
That is one of my favorite poems, and I heard some other board members say they have it on their wall. That is,
Yes,
if we could all just remember those lessons, we would be so much better off. So thank you for reminding of those important lessons.
Great job.
And I know that y'all have a school night tonight, and so if you don't want to stay for the whole meeting, we'll miss you, but we do understand. So thank you for coming. Now, we should, of course, before that happens, is recognize
Yes,
our
the
parents.
and
So if the
principal.
parents and the principal, Ms. Prescott, if you would stand up, and anybody else you have with you representing your school or the families, please stand. Now you may go. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you. Great job, fellas. Good job.
So the first thing on our agenda tonight has to do with our final budget amendments, and at this time I ask for Kim Banks and Naomi Coughlin to come up and present to us, please.
Good evening.
Good
Good
evening.
evening.
So as you know, all year long, we submit to the board budget amendments and financial statements to keep you aware of our financial position. The budget amendments that you have before you, along with the annual financial report, basically close out fiscal year 18-19 for us. And so what I wanted to do really quickly was, you should have the AFR in front of you, the annual financial report. And you don't have to turn to this page, but I wanted to read something from page 7 to you, just to show you where we ended the year with our general fund. It says the district maintained a budgeted fund balance of at least 3% of general fund revenues as required by Florida statutes. The ending unassigned fund balance of approximately $30 million is 11% of general fund revenues. The unassigned and assigned ending fund balance of $50 million is approximately 18% of general fund revenues. So you can see we well exceeded that 3% mandatory requirement at the end of last fiscal year, which rolls into the beginning of fiscal year 1920. So that balance was brought forward into the beginning of this coming year, or this year that we're in right now. And really, this is an acknowledgement. The budget amendment and the annual financial report are an acknowledgement. We submit them to the Department of Education tomorrow, and then the annual financial report will be reviewed by our external auditors. They've already sent us a list that's like single-spaced 8 pages long of everything that they need from us, so we're really excited to start auditing that. But with that, I was going to move past the annual financial report, or is there?
There's action requested under this item.
Okay. Well, what's the? I didn't know that there was an action requested on
Yes.
this item.
It says superintendent recommends approval of the following budget amendments.
Okay.
Right.
So we're going to need a motion and a second.
Madam,
It's been moved and seconded. Can we vote now?
Do we get a second?
Read it out.
You got a second, but I'm looking, do you have a question?
no, I was getting ready to do the more
Are we supposed to read something?
detailed
You can
stuff.
read it out if you'd like.
Yeah.
But do we have to?
This is not this year's budget, so this
Okay.
is like you would do any other
Right.
regular agenda
Okay,
item.
okay. So we have a
Motion
motion
and
and
a
a second. Do I have a vote? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you.
It passes. Thank you.
Okay, so moving forward into fiscal year 1920, as we've done in all the other meetings we've had in the public hearing, the first thing we need to address is the rollback rate, and that should be item 1 on the agenda. So again, the taxing authority is.
Just so that we're clear, you are now moving into the 1920 budget.
Yes.
That's item 1.05. So it looks like you handled 1.03 and 1.04 together.
Was the cost report in there?
1.03 is the final budget amendments. 1.04 is annual financial report and report of financial data and fund balance designation for 1819. Okay, so we're into 1.05, just so that the board is clear.
Thank you.
Okay. So, 1920, again, we're going to begin by discussing the rollback rate. The taxing authority is the School Board of Leon County, Florida, and the millage rate to be levied at 6.167 is more than the rollback rate of 6.110 computed pursuant to section 200.065 paren 1 Florida statute by 0.93%. So the 6.167 mils includes 3.919 mils for the required local effort. It includes 0.748 mils for the discretionary operating purposes and 1.5 mils for capital outlay. Again, this millage rate is actually less than the millage that was actually levied last year by 0.176 mils. So the board actually decreased taxes. The slight difference in revenues that we're anticipating in 1920 as a result of this is really a result of the tax roll that we received from the property appraiser increasing by approximately $900 million.
Kim, I'm sorry to interrupt, Ms. Banks. Is there a page number in the book that you're reading from?
All of the information related to the millage, it can be found in the informational section in the back of the budget book.
Page
It's 74 of the 2020
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
fiscal
you.
year.
Right.
Okay.
Are you done with the
No,
discussion
I
of
was
the
just
millage?
going to remind everyone that the school board is required to levy a portion of this in order to receive approximately $136 million worth of state funds. The funds that we receive from this levy are about 35% of the total revenues that we'll receive during fiscal year 1920. The budget for fiscal year 1920 is approximately $533 million. That's about $2.5 million increase over the budget that was adopted last fiscal year. If you look on page 7 of this document, you can see the budget broken out into the major funds. The largest fund being the general fund. The general fund is approximately $333.7 million of our $533 million budget. It's the fund that's the most discussed because it's our operating budget. What we're going to do is have Naomi go ahead and talk through some of the highlights of it. The budget has not changed significantly from the tentative budget that we discussed. There's been just a handful of additions, some of the board priorities, so she's going to talk through them real quickly, but in large, it's the same.
You want to go to page 22 of the document? That's just an overview of the general fund. Is everybody there?
Not yet. Okay.
And you've seen all this before, like Kim said. Very little has changed because we did a good job of closing out and getting things cleaned up at a decent time this year. But you can see there's the revenues at the top and the expenditures at the bottom. And then unless you got questions on that, if you go on to page 29, that's where our revenues are broken out, and that's where I'll just bring a couple of ones that are new this year that we didn't get last year, some changes that they made in some of the revenues. The best and brightest for the teachers that we got in the past, that was a separate allocation. They've rolled into the FEFP this year. We all know that there's a lot of strings tied to that, but that's a part of when you see that increase of the funding that we've gotten this year, 3.3 million of that's tied to that best and brightest, so it's not flexible dollars. It has to be spent for that area. We got some increase in the mental health area. There was a decrease in the digital classroom, that they have to pay for things different ways, so they move from one pot to another to cover areas. There was a allocation this year called the Turnaround Service, Supplemental Services. Jillian and them call it TESSA. It took me a while to realize that's what they were talking about, but that's for our lower performing schools that have improved, but they improved enough that they don't get that extra help from other fund sources. So this is to continue to help them instead of saying, okay, you've improved grades, so now we're done with you. So this will go toward to help those schools. There's not really any additional changes in here that would stand out. We went over the fund balance, understanding that if you go to page 30, we take all that revenue and then we allocate that out this year. So when we say we have a $50 million ending fund balance from the prior year, half of that, or a third of that, 18.1 million of that's tied to projects like classrooms, textbooks, the after-school programs, various different, there's a specific reason for those funds, so we can't roll them into the unrestricted fund balance. A portion of it is tied to encumbrances that roll forward, so that's like you write a check but it hadn't cleared the bank yet, so that rolls into this year. Then we have to reserve for inventory, so I'm just trying to, I know I'm going into a lot of detail there, but I need people to understand that $50 million is not $50 million that we can go and do whatever we want with it. Once we've allocated all of that out, when that's restricted down the bottom, we got $25 million of flexible that we ended at the end of the year with. It would be nice if we could roll that whole 25 million forward, but unfortunately we don't get enough revenue to cover the increased costs that we have each year. So we depend on that fund balance to help us balance the budget. So when we roll that forward, we ended up, year ended after allocating all the funds out. We covered the board's priorities that we discussed in an earlier agenda review. All those are in here. So everything's been allocated out. Your $300,000 for the
Elementary and
Right, related
Yeah.
to the free and reduced
Right,
lunches.
the restorative justice, the 25,000 for all those things, they're in here. So after we allocate everything out, there's $7.6 million left. Now, we are required to keep a 3% fund balance.
17.
Yeah, there's 17.
What did I say?
Seven.
I'm sorry.
That's all right.
17.6 million. Ooh, that was a slip. But we're required to keep a 3% in order for the state not to come and ask for explanations. And if we did that, 3% of our budget is about $10.5 million. So that just lets the board know what's available there. The next 3 pages, I'm not going to go through them individually because you've seen them over and over and over again. The only things that's changed is there's where we added the board priorities or any additional things that we added in there. So those, you can see that's where we allocate all the funds out completely, step by step. It's a very open budget. So everywhere we allocated, you can see here what it was allocated for. I'm not going to go into any of the other special because federal is mostly Title I and IDEA and that, capital outlay and debt service. Capital outlay is covered by the capital outlay committee. That's approved way earlier in the year, so those areas are not
So unless you have any other questions, I'm kind of finished.
Okay, thank you.
So now you can
Public discussion.
public discussion.
Is there anyone from the public that would like to discuss the budget or say something? Okay, hearing none, we're gonna move to.
People who
Okay, if you want to come
Speak
and
to
speak
the
on the
budget.
budget, you've got 3 minutes. Please come up, give us your full name and address for the record.
Naomi, also, you've taken into consideration the increase of healthcare costs and contribution to FRS. So that's already come out on the front end, right?
Sorry.
Increases are in
To the staffing plan, right?
All right, full name, address for the record, and then you'll have 3 minutes.
Sure. Dr. Joy Phillips, 100 South Woodward Avenue, P.O. Box 3064161. I just wanted to take a few minutes to thank you all so much for your support of the Peace Jam program that we have at Florida State. And we just want to come and give our appreciation and give you all a little bit of information about the impact of your dollars on your students here in Leon County and the larger community. So I'm going to turn it to my colleague Bree Shannon to tell you all a little bit about the work of Peace Jam this past year.
So you're now yielding the rest of your time to this person? Okay, so you're done with your comments?
Yes.
Okay, all right, so we're gonna now start, you'll have
3 minutes.
3 minutes. Give us your name and address for the record.
Okay, if the address is the same, do you need me to repeat it again?
Yes.
Okay, it's 100 South Woodward, and
Your name?
my name is Bridget Shannon.
Thank you.
I just want to again reiterate our thanks for your ongoing support. We're entering our 12th year of Peace Jam programming in Leon County Schools. We're in elementary, middle, and high school classrooms every week. We have over 70 mentors that go out, serve as curriculum coaches in classrooms, and those students are engaged in promoting acts of peace, learning about conflict resolution, and how to identify needs in their community and create that sustainable change. These are skills that they're transferring to their academics and to their future goals in education. And they also participate in 2 conferences a year at the Florida State campus, where the first is in the fall. It's a real idea incubator where they get to think about what is important to them and how they want to make this change in their community. And then in the spring, those that are in 8th grade through 12th grade have the opportunity to meet a Nobel Peace Prize winner and interact with them, share the work that they're doing in our community here in Tallahassee and the way that that's impacting the world. They're also part of a global movement through the Billion Acts of Peace programming, and I just want to say thank you for that ongoing work and the partnerships that we've been able to maintain through our work with Leon County Schools.
That's great, thank you.
Thank you.
I understand that Laura Johnson is also here for Shakespeare, so why don't you come on up since we're talking about the budget and allocations therein.
Hi, I'm Laura Johnson, 6228 Buck Run Circle with Southern Shakespeare Company. I just wanted the opportunity to say thank you all so much for the support that the Leon County School Board has given to Southern Shakespeare Company. This year that we have coming up, we've got some tremendous programs, 2 touring productions that the Leon County School students are going to be able to be a part of. We've got Sonnet Man, who comes into our schools with particular emphasis on our Title I schools, who goes in and works with the students to teach them Shakespeare to hip hop. And this year at our festival, which we're best known for, I know in the city we've got 12th Night that we're doing. And coincidentally, this year, Javon Glover, who is our Sonnet Man, has created an original workshop and production with 12th Night. And so he's got a 12th Night production that is to hip hop, which is Shakespeare's words in a tremendous production that will be a part of the programming in our schools. So we're really excited about the year that we have coming up, and I just wanted to say thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, great. Anybody else from the public like to speak to the budget? Okay, hearing none. Ms. Bowen, do you have a
Motion?
Yes.
I do. Madam Chair, I move that the board adopt the attached resolution determining revenues and millage levied.
Need a second?
I also move that.
No, We
You need a second, don't you?
Yeah, you need a second.
Second.
Y'all need to
All
give
in
me-
favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It passes.
All right, Madam Chair.
Yes, please.
I move that the board adopt the millage rates for the fiscal year July 1, 2019 to June 30, 2020. A, for local required effort, 3.919. B, for discretionary operating purposes, 0.748. C, for capital outlay projects, 1.500, with the total proposed millage being 6.167. I also move that the board.
Ms. Bowen?
Stop again. I did.
Do I have a motion?
Do you have a second?
Have a second?
Second.
All in favor say aye.
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 All right.
But-
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I
yes, ma'am.
move that the board adopt the final estimated budget for the fiscal year July 1, 2019 to June 30, 2020.
Do we have a second?
Second.
It's been seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It passes.
Madam Chair, I move that the board authorize the superintendent to approve the 2018-2019 annual financial report, approve transmittal of the program cost report, and approve the final budget amendments. Legal due date is September 11th, 2019.
Second.
It's been seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
It passes unanimously. Okay, well, thank you.
Can I just say, when
Yes, you may.
the book you saw this year, remember last year, you just had a bunch of pages you couldn't read?
Mm-hmm.
We've got wonderful Natalie back here that put this book together. for us.
Tabbed it. Thank you very much.
Natalie.
Appreciate it. Yes, it's very
It does help
much
a lot,
easier.
Natalie.
You know, Naomi's
Thank
done
you.
this once or twice, but for Kim and for
Yeah.
Natalie and for Kathy Sanders, you know, I spent a lot of time at Never Never Land, right? But I can tell you over the course of the last several months, these four ladies have also spent just as much time or more than I do every single week and on the weekends preparing for tonight. And this document is absolutely beautiful. You know, we're still looking for the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. We know it's there someplace.
That is
But
that, isn't it?
again, Natalie and Kathy to your team, please extend our thank yous and congratulations. And they're going to leave here, I think, tonight and go back and hit the submit button to the Department of Education with our annual financial report. So it's a job well done. I mean, we do-
Congratulations.
Good job.
Thank you so very
Congratulations.
much.
Thank you, ladies.
Okay, next we have changes and additions. Ms. Rasmussen?
Yes, ma'am, we do. Superintendent recommends approval of changes and additions to tonight's board meeting as presented. Item 19.01, the superintendent recommends approval to advertise amendments to policy 8310, public records for a public hearing and adoption on October 22nd, 2019. Replaced documentation. Change of date was needed on the document.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes. Next, we have the superintendent spotlight. Really looking forward to this. So take it away.
Madam Chair, if I may, about 10 months ago, and we had some folks from the neighborhood medical center and Gary Jordan, a local celebrity, PR guru,
Yes, all of the above.
master of many, many things, approach us about initiatives surrounding mental health and mental health awareness for our children, parents, and families. And, you know, Gary's a hard person. He brought Becky along with him from Neighborhood Medical Center. So both they're hard to say no to, but their vision was twofold. One, that we create 2 public service announcements, one directed at our parents and one directed at our students, but all coming from our students to identify and to get kids who are in crisis to speak out if they need help, and then for parents to look for signals and signs of their children who may indeed need some help. And then the second goal was to connect those families with resources and information they need to get help. And we had the press conference yesterday and thought it was really important to have some of those people here with us today. So this time I would like to, I don't want to put him on the spot, but Gary, if you would come up, please. And see, we have one of our actors, one of our student actors
You come on
in
up,
the
Jeff.
back. Please,
Yeah.
no. We're not going to let you off the hook that easy. I need you
Yeah, he
to come
comes
up
to
here.
be here.
So I'd like Gary just to elaborate a little bit on his vision, because he spent, countless hours perfecting these two spots. And, you know, he's a person that's not going to release a product until it's perfect. And both of these spots are just perfect. I think to date we've had well over 10,000, between 10 and 11,000 views, and that was with doing nothing. That was just simply with the help of WCTV and TXL and the Democrat and other media outlets around, and then pushing it out on our social media and listservs. But this thing is just on fire, and would not have happened, Gary, without you. I just want to publicly say thank you.
Appreciate that. We're pushing almost 75,000 views now.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, it sort of exploded, and mostly it started a lot of conversations, which is, you know, what we intended to do. But these guys were awesome. First of all, this guy's voice, we've got to figure out how to use it in every other way. Just say hi. This deep thing, and so the idea was to work with students, and so we went to Godby and Leon, and we worked. We found some of the best and brightest, and we challenged them to be remarkable, and they came through. I mean, even the day of the shoot was about 5 hours. And yeah, I know they're ready to kill me, and but we kind of hung in there together, and they did just an unbelievable job. You'll see this guy at a really key moment in the two spots, but we know that parents can tell kids all day what they ought to be thinking about, but kids telling kids is probably a better path. But the one place we wanted to engage parents was to start looking at signals. You know, we've all had some experience in our life where signals were missed. I know we did with our son, and you lose years and sometimes more than that when signals are missed. And so let's start some conversations inside the home. In fact, it was my wife Bernice who came up with the line at the end that mental health begins at home. Becky and I were actually on the phone trying to come up with the last line, and Bernice yelled it from the sofa. And so I guess you're going to show them?
Yeah.
So, yeah, love to see them. Oh, this first one is the parents, and it's students talking directly to their parents.
We are sending you signals every day. We are sending you signals every day.
We're sending you signals every day.
We're sending you signals every day.
I'll be feeling sad, but you're too busy to notice.
We are sending you signals every day. I'll tell you that I'm feeling afraid, but you'll just tell me everything is okay.
I'll get real angry about something, but you'll take it personally.
We are sending you signals every day. My grades will drop, and you'll yell at me for not trying.
I stopped caring about how I look.
And you didn't even notice.
We are sending you signals every day.
I don't see my friends anymore.
And you think it's good that I'm always home.
We are sending you signals every day.
I'll tell you, I wish I could go to sleep and never wake up. And you tell me to stop staying up so late.
We are sending you signals every day.
I need you to look.
I need you to listen. And ask me if you can help.
Gave me
Love
chill
that one.
bumps.
And the link takes you directly to great community resources all throughout. So when you click on it, you won't have any trouble finding a place to go. This next one, oh, there's the link, yeah. And I mean, there's a bunch of folks, and actually, there were a lot of agencies around the city and the county when they saw what we had done who said, we want to be a partner. It was a little late for that, but we happily made sure that the resources are there. This is the student piece. This is students talking directly to students, and the important part of this was that we met with a lot of folks who know a lot about this, but we also spent about 3 months meeting with students, finding out what were the triggers for them, what kind of conversations were they having. And one of the things we found out was that if they're confronted with something and their peers are around, they immediately say, they make a joke. And so we wanted to start these with that engagement. So the very first line is, we know if you're seeing this with friends, you're going to make a joke. And then they kind of talk. And the one thing we learned through this process was just talk to someone. Just, you're not alone. and here it is.
If you're watching this with your friends, you'll probably make a joke.
Because you know what you feel on the inside.
Isn't what you want people to know.
If you have to pretend to be happy,
Find someone you trust and tell them.
If you get mad at things and you don't know why, or have thoughts about hurting yourself, find someone you trust and tell them.
You are never alone when you share.
Seriously, people care about you. It's okay to not understand what you're feeling.
and it's easy to think that you're all alone.
But you don't have to be.
You're never alone when you share.
Don't be ashamed to tell someone you trust what you're feeling.
You're not alone.
You are not alone.
Find someone you trust and tell them.
Tell a parent.
Tell a teacher. Tell a brother or sister. Or just tell a friend.
You haven't done anything wrong.
Talk to someone.
Talk to someone. It's how things get better.
So we're going to start. Thank you. So we hope these guys talk to someone. I know he's incredibly troubled. Well, he's trying to figure out where to use the voice. It is a great voice, isn't it?
Yes.
And, you know, they just were so good on camera. I mean, they leaned in and they just made it happen. And so I don't think we could have used actors and ever pulled that off. It had to be real, and it was. So thank you for.
But it had to be, and it had to be kids.
Yeah.
If we're talking to them, we're like Charlie Brown's teacher. You know, coming from them, it's so much more powerful.
Yes.
And you know, in this issue, like in the diversity you had with your cast, because this issue does not discriminate based on race or gender or wealth or socioeconomic status or anything. I mean, it affects all of our kids. And you know, we don't agree on many things as Americans these days, but I think we all agree that we have to do more. And I think this is a proud moment for Leon County Schools that we are doing more to encourage our kids to do just what you said, to speak out and to tell someone, and tell our parents to look at signs. This issue, it's close to home for me, as it does for you. And I'm very proud of this work, Gary, but it would not have happened without you.
I
So
appreciate that.
really
We've
earned
actually,
it.
thank you. We've actually heard from a number of folks already who are sharing some of the conversations they've had with their kids that might not have taken place otherwise. So thank you guys for your vision to support this, and now we'll see if we can get over 100,000 by the end of the day. So.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
Gary, thank you. You've done an outstanding job, and certainly I was there for the premiere on yesterday. But could you just allow, and I suspect you were going to do this in a way, just to have us hear the voice of the voice that's standing next to you, who he is, who is he, does he go to school, what does he want to do when he really grows up? He's just there, and it's so attentive. So who are you, sir?
Terrell, first of all, did you share with me yesterday you were at Boys Town for a while?
Yes, sir.
Right. So maybe you can tell a little bit about your story. It's an amazing journey.
We met. Go ahead.
Okay, yeah, I'm Terrell Lamar, and a few years ago I was at Boys Town for about a year or so, and yeah, I had met Mr.
Hannah.
Awkward. Mr. Hannah at the gala that we have every summer, so it was nice to see what he had to say, and he, you know, I thought he was a pretty cool person. He is a pretty cool person, so
Okay.
yeah, so I was at Boys Town while I was at Gabi High School, and I graduated from Gabi last year. So right now I'm at FSU, majoring in theater.
Of course, theater.
So yeah, actually I just finished class like 2 hours ago, so
Right.
I have class tomorrow. So
Good. And he promised that he would be here tonight, and so he is. Thank you so much for what you do.
Thank you very
We
much.
appreciate you.
We sort of all became family, all the kids, and we stayed pretty tight. So thank you
Our
very
student
much.
school board member has something he'd like to say. So, AP, go ahead.
First of all, just thank you. From a student perspective, seeing the impact that your videos had today, it made my heart really happy. I mean, you did something historic today. You, for the first time in 4 years, you got one of my teachers to sit down and for a class period talk to us about her struggles, about the struggles that we might face, about the struggles she's seen other students face. And that's something that I've never seen before. So for that, I really can't thank you enough. You already have done so much to destigmatize the problems around psychological issues and the problems around mental health that students face every day. And for you to tell parents to just sit down and to listen is tremendous. And I guess what I want to say to the parents is that I know that you're busy sometimes, that sometimes you feel as if, as a child, your only problems should be school, work, and maybe some drama with friends. But that's not true. Every human being on this planet has the right to struggle. And every human being on this right has the right to support. And your videos explain that so clearly. And it really shows students that we're not a burden. That when we tell someone that we're struggling, we're not causing them a disservice. Because the biggest disservice that we could cause them is to not show up to school next day because our problems got the best of us. So thank you.
Appreciate it.
Oh, thank you. That was totally awesome. AP, thank you so much.
Beautifully done.
And I understand that our other communication specialist who's in the audience, David Voss, is going to help spread this around the whole state. Is that the plan? So you two working together, this thing is going to go far. So thank you.
Yes,
Thank you so much. Are we ready to move on?
Yes.
I think we are. We have, I don't believe anybody here in persons to be, but we do have persons to be heard, so we'll skip down to that.
Madam Chair, we have two speakers at this time. The first speaker, Scott Mazer. Please come to the podium, give us your name and address. You'll have 3 minutes.
Scott Mazer, 3319 Dartmoor Drive. Appreciate the opportunity to speak to you again, Superintendent, Madam Chair, Board. It's a good segue right here. I did get you guys your books, and I have a little homework assignment for you. So I'll pass that out to you afterwards. We're going to do chapter 1 first, but the idea that was kind of discussed by you was about creating a quality world. You know, when we go ahead and have a quality world for somebody, they become a part of it. And the concern that we have is that there's this push for bell-to-bell instruction, and there isn't much time for that quality world to go ahead and create relationships with students. So after we do this part, it kind of segues into the next piece that I have some materials for you about Fund Our Future Florida. Because right now, we're sitting about 43rd out of 50 states in terms of funding for our students, which means that with the third largest GPD out of 50 states, we're not doing a very good job. Which means we should have more resources for our students. And what we'd like to do is to work with you and anyone else in our community that would like to turn up the volume when the legislature comes to town. Okay? So I've reached out to each. Would like to sit down and talk about how we can possibly do that together, and then make sure that we go ahead and finish up on the assignment and get to chapter 2. But I just want to say thank you very much for your time, and thank you for the video. My favorite part of teaching sometimes was the ability to kind of do a little side conversation, because if you don't stop and give 5 or 10 minutes here and there, you can lose out on the importance of being able to connect with your students. So thank you very much.
Scott.
Madam Chair, the next speaker, second and last speaker, is Beth Dumond. Please come give us your name and address. You'll have 3 minutes.
And I want you to know that I invited Beth to come speak to us tonight. She wrote us a letter last night as the beginning of National Suicide Week and some of her work that she and I have discussed. So I wanted you all to hear about it. So usually we don't ask speakers questions, but tonight I want to open up the floor after she speaks to anybody want to ask her a question about this important subject. So go ahead, Beth, and tell us what you're about.
Thanks, and I will be as brief as I can. Beth Dumond, 6316 Mallard Trace Drive. And first of all, thank you for treating this topic as seriously as you are. It's not an easy one, but our kids are watching, and I know from speaking to my own daughter, who is a senior at Childs, that it's incredibly important to them. It's not an easy subject, but they know that you all are treating it seriously, and it does matter to them a great deal. I shared some information with you all yesterday via email based on some conversations that some of us had earlier about national program that I help coordinate locally called Be Smart for Kids. It is a program designed to educate adults on the importance of keeping guns securely locked and unloaded away from children of all ages. This matters for so many reasons: preventing tragic unintentional shootings, school safety, and helping to prevent suicide. And I wanted to share just a few brief statistics with you to illustrate why I think any discussion of suicide in children is incomplete without talking about the role of unsecured firearms. Most people who attempt suicide don't die unless they use a gun. 85% of suicides with a gun, suicide attempts with a gun, result in death. 85%. Across all suicide attempts not using a gun, less than 5% will result in death. And this contributes to the fact that 40% of child suicides involve a gun. And finally, particularly when you're talking about teenagers, nearly half of those who survive a suicide attempt report spending 10 minutes or less deliberating before the actual attempt. Preventing access to guns in our homes and the homes of family and friends isn't a total solution, obviously, but it can be a vitally important part of the puzzle, and any barrier that we can put in place between our children and an impulsive act that they can never take back is one worth looking at. So those of us who work with the Be Smart program would just like to reiterate that we stand ready to help in whatever way we can to spread the message of the importance of safe gun storage, whether it is educational programming for parents or other caregivers, or helping you to put together information that could be sent home or shared on school or district websites. We just want the message to be spread as loudly and as clearly as possible. And I do have copies of some of the types of information that we share at the events we use. And look, I realize that the issue of guns is a touchy one, but when it comes to this, it is a nonpartisan, non-political issue. It is a common sense guide. Safety, teaching parents that when it comes to this issue, there is one thing that they can do right this minute that can help prevent a child from taking their own life.
Perfect timing. Great. Thank you so much, Beth. Does anybody have a question or comment for Beth? I have a question. Okay, go ahead. Okay. Just when you talked about programs you've seen,
yes,
can you tell us what sort of programs you've seen in different school systems, how they've used these materials to disseminate out to parents and
Absolutely.
students?
Excuse me. There are a number of ways that things can be done. There are two methods that we use to get the message out primarily. One is educational programming for parents. So within the school system, it's been done at things like PTO meetings. This is a program that's been endorsed by the National PTA. I know in Leon County we use PTOs primarily, but it's been endorsed by the National PTA and American Medical Association. So sometimes it's a 20, 30-minute presentation. It just talks about safe storage. And it's for gun owning and non-gun owning parents alike, because we know that children spend time at other people's homes. Alternatively, there is literature that can be sent home. Some school programs have sent information home with children. Others have made the information available on websites. So it's really any way that the information can be sent to the ultimate stakeholder, which is parents, which simply says that guns need to be secured, unloaded, and locked and out of the reach of children. And particularly in communities like this with hunting cultures, it's incredibly important that that message is reinforced as children get older, because what we know is we hear a lot of parents say, well, when my children were younger, we kept the guns locked up. It was very important. But now they know what they're doing. They hunt. They know gun safety. And we have to reinforce that message that says, yes, but there's a whole different set of issues now, which is mental health issues, school security issues. You still have to maintain those security practices. And it's just a message that needs to be reinforced over and over again. And again, if you're a parent that doesn't, we hear also, we don't own guns. And we have to say, yes, but 4.6 million children in this country live in homes with guns that are stored unlocked. And there's a good chance that your children are going to other people's homes. So it's a message, again, that just has to be reinforced over and over again in whatever way it can get out.
Thank you.
Beth, I just want to say thank you. I mean, because you're right. This is just common sense. It's not an issue or discussion of gun laws or gun control or where we should be as a country or society. I've been to 2 funerals since the start of school, both with teenagers killed by loaded weapons in the home.
And neither of which was...
and a third that's in the hospital.
Yeah.
So we just have to look in our backyard. I mean, it's right here at our doorstep. There is nothing more important than responsible gun ownership. You can take the politics out of it, but I could not agree with you more. And anything that we can do to help promote your message, to get parents to think about gun safety and teaching kids about gun safety and how to properly store weapons in the home, I think I'm all for it personally. I can't speak for them, but I'm all for it.
Yeah, and I can't speak for the guidance counselors. I can't speak for the social workers in the school, but I know in speaking to my friends who are parents who have children who unfortunately have needed to be seen because they have either talked about committing suicide or have actually attempted it, the parents will say, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. And one of the first things that needs to be said that isn't always said sometimes is, do you have guns in the home? And if you do, how are they stored? And if that's, I mean, sometimes that's like such a common sense thing.
Well, because
to
it
be
stops in immediate, like you said, they thought about it for this long. It's an immediate and you have immediate access to that, to a gun, then it's over.
Yeah.
You know, just like that, before there's even any thought, any more thought, because like you said, kids that are using guns in the home to commit suicide, it's gonna happen.
It said 10 minutes, unfortunately,
Right.
10 to 15 minutes from the time you ideation to the act with teenagers. And like Laura and I were speaking earlier, and I have a 17-year-old daughter. What is a crisis at 3 p.m.? She has forgotten about by dinner time.
Right.
So.
AP, you wanted to add something? Sorry.
First, thank you for the information that you've brought to us today. And second, when we've been discussing about how impactful the student perspective can be and how students talking to students can also have a very effective impact. I know you've worked with Students Demand Action groups in the past.
Yes.
And I was just wondering, and
Although
you
that
don't,
is a different issue, but yes.
Mhm. And I was just wondering, and this doesn't have to be answered right now, if there was something that we could partner with those groups or different groups inside of a school for education outreach.
I will say, and this gets into a whole different issue, but the Be Smart program in particular is geared towards adults. And I say that because the philosophy is it is never a child's responsibility to protect themselves from a gun. And again, I say that as the parent of a 17-year-old who is about to go off to college, but is still a child. So I think there is an enormous role for groups like Students Demand Action in this larger effort of peers talking to peers about suicide prevention and things like that. This particular effort, I don't know, and it would just depend.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Well, just thank you so much for coming, and I hear the superintendent saying we'll do some follow-up and.
Yes.
Absolutely. So we'll sit down and meet and talk a little
Cards
bit
are on
more
there, so-
about how we can message this out to our parents,
Yes,
and
absolutely.
I think they would welcome it.
I've got several thoughts and ways that it's been done, and my cards are all on there. So.
Thank you.
It's a long haul from Ox Bottom. Thank you for taking the time to come all the way out here.
Really appreciate it. And we had a long discussion in our board meeting yesterday in our workshop about what can we do. And education is what we do. So this is about education. So this does fall right into our wheelhouse. And I appreciate that because we all have a part to play in this, and our part is the education piece. So anything we can do in that realm, I think is us. And I meant to mention that Mr. Jones wanted to be here. He's attending to some family matters. He's still going to try to come, but he sends his regards. Okay. All right, thank you. And we're going to go right on to items of consent. Do I have a motion?
So moved, Madam Chair.
Second.
Been moved and second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Passes. And then we scroll on down to 19, items of consideration. And looks like we have the superintendent recommending something. And Dr. Gale, you go ahead and tell us.
Good evening, Madam Chair, Board Members, Superintendent. You have before you, we would like to advertise policy or revisions to policy 8310 public records. You will recall yesterday we had an in-depth workshop on this particular policy, which only has 3 changes in it. We're going to clarify the designee who is responsible for handling public requests. That person is actually the custodian of records requests. At this time, that's Julie Jernigan. She's not named here, but she was a part of the workshop on yesterday. It removes some language that repeats, and it also inserts directory information language.
Okay. Do I have a motion?
I move the superintendent's recommendation, Madam Chair.
Second.
Moved and second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
And, it passes.
Thank you.
And next we have Ames Webb. Ms. Gregory.
Good evening, Madam Chair, school board members. On behalf of the superintendent, for your consideration this evening, the superintendent recommends approval of the annual license agreement for the 2019-20 school year between Leon County Schools and Pearson Education for the Ames Web 2.0 Plus software. Move approval.
Second. Moved and second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Passes. Thank you for that good presentation we had yesterday on this.
Yes.
Information items. Is there anything for 20.01 for upcoming meetings? I don't see anything. Nope. Superintendent's comments.
Briefly, Madam Chair, you know, we've over the past weekend we had a rash of violence. The incident at the movie theater. There was another incident at Jack McLean Park. We're still working with local law enforcement agencies to try to understand exactly what happened and how we can partner with them to work with our students on some of the issues that are happening in our community. But it's going to take all of us, and it just breaks my heart to think that we have another child that was killed. Unfortunately, I'll probably be attending a 3rd funeral this weekend, just in the 4th week of school. And we have 2 of our students who have been incarcerated and another one that's in the hospital. So we're still trying to get to the bottom and working with Chief Hunkiar and his staff and local law enforcement agencies to see exactly what happened, what led to this incident happening, and what can we do to deter it from happening in the future. On a positive note, as you all know, we celebrated a ribbon cutting at Rickards High School last week. We had a very successful launch to this mental health campaign, and then earlier this morning we were at Pineview Sable Palm Elementary School,
yeah.
because I was thinking Pineview was on the front page of the paper. Thank you, Tallahassee Democrat. Thank you, CD, telling their story of
Right.
the epic movement they made last year with their school grade, and then today at Sable Palm, cutting the ribbon of Leon County's first community school, partnership school. So it was a proud moment. So we have a lot to celebrate, a lot to be thankful for. But with a large organization like any, there's still a lot of work to be done.
Sure. Madam Chair?
Yes.
May I say very quickly related to that, thank you, Mr. Superintendent, for your comments. We do so many good things in this community, and you just listed 2 or 3 of them. But when I think about what we're going through right now with the atrocities that happened this past weekend and the illness of the young man that's in the hospital, yesterday we had a wonderful discussion, I think, and just among ourselves about how important it is for this community to know that this is a community effort, and we've got to have all hands on deck to make the kind of changes in our communities when it comes to the behaviors and signaling and looking out for each other and our children. And so I hope that message continues to resonate very loud and strong, that not one entity in this community can do all of this by itself. And so I think your plea to the parents, and having heard what we heard tonight, I was sitting here, having been a teenager at one point myself, but who've had teenagers in my home. It's tough being a parent, and it doesn't come with the parenting handbook. And so I'm hoping that as we talk about this, we can embrace each other and still look at ways, even as adults, because sometimes parent to parent, we need to talk to each other too about our troubles with our children and vice versa. But I just needed to say that, yes, while we are about education, there still is more to be done in this community. And so those entities that are out there that are helping all of us in this village, and if ever there was a time that this village needed to come together for the safety of all of us, it is certainly now. And I have to say what I always say, we don't live all over the United States. We live right here, the capital T in Tallahassee, so we can be on hand to do what we need to do for all of our children.
Yes. Yes. I'm just moving right into new issues because we have their student age violence in our community. So we're just talking about that, so I just wanted to acknowledge that on the agenda. Did you want to talk about that or something else?
A little bit of that and a little bit of
Go for it.
I wanted to acknowledge that we have the Assistant Vice President for Student Affairs, Dr. Brandon Bowden, in the audience tonight from Florida State University. And you all have often heard me mention the pedagogy of service learning and the idea of student engagement. And I know tonight there are at least 4 folks in the audience from FSU who work with students every day around the idea of community engagement. They are responsible for having students at Florida State become engaged in the community to solve community problems. So I'm very happy that you've been here to hear how, not that you wouldn't have known anyway, but tonight, obviously, we've dealt with a plethora of really critical issues. And I just was thinking about how criminal justice students and social work students and doctoral students might be able to help us address these issues. And earlier today, I just want to acknowledge that the FSU Medical School is one of the primary there are 4 key partners in the community school at Sable Palm and the primary care clinic that they just opened in May. And we had the pleasure of being with the physicians and the dean of the medical school this morning. We thank you for that. And we thank you for being here tonight with Peace Jam and all the great work that you do at the Center for Social Change and Leadership. And so we thank you for your partnership. And as you can think about ways where your students might be able to engage with us in these difficult challenges that are facing our community right here as a way of teaching them their course content and their opportunities for growth, we are grateful for your leadership.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Just prior to Board Member Rasmussen mentioning the FSU delegation, I was sitting here like a very proud Mama Turkey because I can say that, a proud Mama Turkey because before Dr. Brandon Bowden was Dr. Brandon Bowden, he was just Brandon, a student of mine at the Florida State University, and he's continuing to do now what he used to do when we were in session. He would sit behind someone and do just what he's doing, but he is a brilliant, caring individual, and it's so good to have him here tonight and to see how he has progressed and to know that while he is proud of the 18th ranking of Florida State University, the whoos, that's great. And I said to him, but you know, that 18th stands on the shoulders of some of us who were there for some 30 years, and he had to agree. So do you still agree? Great. It's good to see you, Brandon. Please give my hello to the 4 women in your life who support you and tell you what to do still. Thank you. Great. Thank you for being here.
Anybody else? I'll just make mention that we have moved our board workshops that normally occur on the Monday before the Tuesday board meeting to this location so that it's more accessible to the public. We did learn yesterday that it took a lot of staff time to set up special microphones and video cameras and that sort of thing. So we are going to simplify it a little bit. We will be here at the dais and we'll have microphones and we will have our computers, but we will just do audio recording rather than requiring our staff to stop what they're doing and getting out the video cameras. So it'll be noticed, it'll be open to the public, we'll have minutes taken, and we will have a recorded audio that will be on the website, and that is how we will be in the sunshine on that. But I just wanted to clarify how we were going to do that moving forward. Although the next, I believe the 23rd, is it, on the Monday.
Yep.
There's a really special activity going on. Ms. Striplin, do you want to mention that? Because you mentioned it yesterday, and we're not going to have a board workshop so that the board who are in town can participate.
Yeah, so on the 23rd, Leon County Schools is sponsoring with Whole Child Leon, one of the CSEs. I believe it's from Broward or Brevard, one of those B counties. It's going to be here and talk about racial bias in our communities and how their CSE tackled some of those issues. And I think we're successful, and they're going to show some metrics as we continue discussion about our CSE as it'll go on the ballot in 2020. So I felt like this is a really important conversation for anyone that's involved with our children, and especially our schools. And so I'd requested that we maybe, instead of workshop and agenda review that day, have the ability for us to attend, because it is smack dab in the middle, 3 to 5 on Monday the 23rd. I believe it's at the Civic Center. So I would encourage anyone that's listening to attend and hear what she has to say, and how hopefully that the CSE is going to really positively impact our community if it does pass here, and how it's affected their community. So
And CSC means?
Children's Service Council.
Okay, because some people don't know that acronym yet.
I know.
Okay.
We all have to recite our acronyms.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah.
Okay, is there anything else for the good of the board, good of anyone? Okay, well, we're going to dismiss and go home. Thank you. Good night.